everyone, thanks for watching. It's late March, it's cold, it's getting below freezing. I got the wood stove with me on this trip. Behind me is a blue ribbon trout stream that I'm going to be exploring. I got my e-bike and I have my drift boat setup that I've been working on. I'm going to do some cooking over an open fire. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the adventure. So I got Eddie unhooked, and now I got to swap out my lock and roll hitch with the bike carrier. So when I get back to the truck, it's just so much easier to load the bike up with the bike carrier and just roll it up there and get back after a long day on the river. So on the way in, I grabbed some nice hardwood for the campfire. I'm gonna grill a nice steak over the fire. I'm gonna do some Brussels sprouts with some garlic and bacon. So what I do is I saute the bacon in my cast iron Dutch oven, kind of slowly simmer the garlic with it, throw in the Brussels sprouts, kind of sear them, throw the pot on there, and then grill the steak, and we're gonna have a great dinner. Probably gonna have a beer with it. And then in the morning, get up and do some fishing, spend all day on the river. I like to go shopping right before I leave for a trip, so sometimes I can get a deal. A lot of places slash the prices when they get close to expiring, so I got some steaks for 50% off. It's gonna make them that much tastier. Bacon is been cooked, it's off to the side right now. Put a little bit of olive oil on the Brussels sprouts. Pepper. Cooking a lot, so I'll have leftovers. Lots of leftovers. That's the hard work for the trip. The busiest time is always the first night when I get here, set things up. Get a fire going, cook dinner. I like cooking on the first night, I mean if the weather cooperates. Okay, steak and these Brussels sprouts turned out awesome. Let's see here. Time to eat. There's a reason why there's not a lot of trout fishermen out today, or in the winter time in general, because it's freezing. Whew. So, nice hot dehydrated meal with this sweet pork and rice. This is just a gorgeous stretch of the river. Upstream when I started, I was surprised how shallow it was. A lot of stretches of gravel where you can get out in not even knee-deep water. As I'm making my way downstream, it's starting to get a little deeper. I love exploring rivers just as much as I love fishing. So in the winter time, the odds of success trout fishing is minimal, but the enjoyment of paddling down river with nobody around and no bugs makes up for it. Well, there's just some things that don't show up on Google satellite imagery. And generally one of those things is metal gates. So this piece of metal divides one campground from another campground. When I planned this trip, what really appealed to me was the ability to camp right next to the water so I wouldn't have to carry all my gear back up to the trailer. So up top here seems to be more for regular car camping and trailers. And down this way, closer to the water, I'm assuming that these are paddle-in campsites, which makes sense because you can paddle this river and just drag your tent to a site, camp for the night, and continue on your way down the river. So that makes sense, but I didn't know that at the time. So now I have to carry all my gear back to the trailer. And the funny thing about rivers is when you get out of one, you always have to walk uphill. And in this case, I'm pulling my canoe and all my gear uphill. So enough complaining. I got to go back to the river, get the rest of my stuff, go back to Eddie, get a fire going, hop on my e-bike, go back and grab my truck, come back, have a dinner inside, and just relax for the night because it's been a really long day on the river. It's my tracks from my cart. So the canoe was a little heavier than I had planned, and so I just made a second trip. This doesn't look necessarily on camera like a very steep hill, but when you're dragging a canoe up it, I can assure you it's heavier than you would like. I could have camped right here. Right behind me is where I took the canoe out, less than 100 yards, got all my gear, trailer would have been there. Things don't always go as planned, but live and learn. This is more of a research and development type of trip, and one of the things that I'm trying to dial in with my drift boat setup is also the anchor system. So in the video you could see me drop this, this is like a 15-pound, kind of, I don't know how you would describe it, anchor. It works really effectively. I have that system where I just kind of pull the rope, it drops down into the water, and it grabs nicely and the boat comes to a nice stop, which is perfect. But what I'm aiming to do with my setup is to be able to fish standing up in a dry fly presentation. But I need to slow down the boat, but not necessarily at a complete stop. So what I've been doing on this trip is testing out basically this chain system. So I have a 10-foot 3/8 galvanized chain. I've wrapped it in this protective coating that has an industrial use. I got it from Princess Auto. I'm not exactly sure technically what it's for. I think it covers pipe, but it works perfectly for covering chains. I originally got that because I wanted to lock up my bikes in the garage and didn't want to scrape the frame. So it actually works out perfectly, and I think it's a little easier on the river bottom. So I don't think dragging this chain is any different than walking with your wading boots through a river. So the big test with this chain was to see how much has to drag to slow the boat down. So what I found with the chain is that I could still use my anchor system and lower it into the riverbed and determine kind of how much needs to drag to slow down the canoe. And I was even able to test it to see if I could get the canoe to come to a complete stop. So again, more of a research and development trip than a fishing trip. You know, just being on the water was gorgeous. It's just a beautiful stretch of river. And again, my goal is to kind of dial this setup in, make it as efficient as possible, because it is a little time consuming setting it up and taking it down. So I'm still working out a few tweaks on that. Carrying less gear is always going to be a benefit, especially you saw how I had to drag it up and deal with that, right? So I just thought I'd cover that off with my drift boat setup. That's just one of the projects that I'm working on. I'm obviously still working on the inside of the trailer, and I'm working on going on a lot of different trips throughout the year, but this is just the latest project that I'm working on right now. So this will wrap up the video. I'm going to pack up and head home. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you like it, I really appreciate if you give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe so you can come along with all the adventures with me. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.